And
wait, hold on. The Times reached out based on the dishes one or some of your other writing? What
the
was
story I heard from Jancy Dunn, the reporter, was that the New York Times parenting editors got together and said, hey, are there any non-mental health professional guys in the world that like know this conversation that we're trying to have right now?
Right.
And Jancy raises her hand in this like editorial meeting and says, I actually know about one. Because she found that article while she was researching one of her books. So she reaches out to me. We have like a series of interviews. I actually do a coaching session with her husband, another author's brilliant guy named Tom Vanderbilt, amazing guy. But like we had a great like 2-hour conversation. And anyway, Jancy leverages all of that to like write this story. And again, everything just changed after that. The Times has enormous reach.
Oh,
and
trust me, yeah.
Right?
It does,
I didn't quite like realize what would happen. And so all of these like agents reached out to me and all of these TV people reached out to me. And within a couple of weeks, I had agents. I had, and then a week or two after that, you know, Harper reached out with an offer to like make this book. I had already had a book proposal because I'd like, so to answer your question, like most honestly, a year or two earlier, I thought I had enough to put a book together. Right. But it would have been a gross product as a self-published or like slopped together thing. This ended up, I got put together with an incredible team, like a Harper, that helped me make this the thing that, I don't know, we'll find out next March what people think of it.
And not to, bring myself into it, I get offers or people reach out to do books all the time. My worry about a book in the both personal journey space and the relationship space is this world is evolving and moving so fast that I'm always paranoid that the book will be dated by 6 months. Either I don't think that way or anything, or the world doesn't work that way anymore. Yeah. I got to get over that. It's true, but that's why I like podcasting, because I feel like I don't have to put a period on the sentence. I can keep the conversation going. So in the book, give me the overview, the overview of the book.
The book, I hope what it is an infinitely better written and more mature version of like the blog collectively. So I did leverage like ideas in the blog as subsections and chapters that were then, written in a today, what I hope and feel are more mature thoughts and more mature writing. The book is part memoir, part self-help. I try to combine my personal story, the stories of clients that agreed to let me share some of their stories, just to try to like make points and make it really human. And then the ideas I discovered in my blogging years that helped me arrive at these conclusions I've arrived at, I sprinkle those in the book. And then I try to encapsulate the work that I'm doing in coaching, this work around forming new habits in order to restore trust in relationships in these really subtle, nuanced ways.
So your curiosity drives a lot of the information. It's you asking why. Why did I do this? Why do we do this? Why does she react that way? Drives everything, right?
That's what got the ball rolling. I don't know that the book's asking a lot of questions. I think the book's answering those questions that I had. Right. And then people get to decide for themselves whether it's relevant to them.
Do you get a lot of who are you and what is your schooling on all this? Whenever, trust me, I get it.
I did earlier than I do now.
Yeah.
If you Google things like my husband's an asshole or why does my wife hate me? Yeah. I come up like one or two for like all of those. And I think for better or worse, it shouldn't give me credibility, Google results.
I think it should, because you're tapped into something that resonates. I say this all the time. Bill Belichick didn't play quarterback in the NFL. Doesn't mean he couldn't coach Tom Brady. That's right. Doesn't mean he doesn't understand how to figure it out. Trying to do the work on yourself and trying to push the conversation to new places has great value. And you can go to school for 50 years and never really understand how to do that. How have you changed both in working with other people and in writing about this stuff over? Are you a better candidate for a 50-year marriage than you were 10 years ago?
Absolutely. I always like to say, though, that I'm not a marriage advocate. I'm not out here trying to encourage people to get married.
Relationship advocate.
Yes. What I want is for people to not fail in relationships that they honestly want to be in. Right. Because that to me is the real tragedy of marriage. It's like usually young people getting married on purpose, believing it's going to be forever. Almost nobody's getting married. Like, I sure hope this sucks and we get divorced in 6-7 years. Nobody does that. And but then they learn the hard way, this like slow erosion that happens. And I believe I can explain for a lot of those people why it happens in a way that that will resonate with them, in a way that won't feel like a dude with like patches on his like elbows from like a leather chair preaching. Like, I'm just a guy that sucked at marriage, and I tell that story, and I hopefully sprinkle in like a little bit of wisdom too, hard earned, and people decide for themselves that it sounds like their life. That's my favorite feedback is, Matt, do you have a camera in our kitchen? How do you know the conversations we have? And I'm like, I don't. You just statistically have the same ones I had.
Right.
Because everybody has these conversations, and we don't talk about it at dinner parties, and we don't talk about it at family get-togethers. So nobody knows we're all having this conversation.
What has your ex-wife had to say about, she must know you're doing this?
Yeah, so we don't talk about like the content very much. I can tell you, I think we have an extraordinarily positive relationship. My son just did like placement testing for high school last weekend, and we hung out for like 3 hours together, and that's not weird. We were doing that almost from the beginning. Holiday pageants and stuff for the kid. Like, there was a long time where parents at his school didn't know we weren't married because she and I were at everything together, like on behalf of her son. So I think she has a lot of respect for the fact that I do consider her when I make decisions now as a co-parenting partner.
Right.
But
was there
I think emotionally,
I need to talk to you about this dishes thing.
No, I think emotionally, like, she doesn't want to. And she's been in a long-term relationship for a while now. Like, that's...
I bet he doesn't leave the dishes by the sink.
I honestly don't know. Right? She and I aren't like pals. Like, I think we care about each other.
You did the hard work.
But we don't hang out and have drinks and
so she's not like, am I in your book? She's not like, I mean, that's sort of human nature. You would be like, how much is... I had an ex-girlfriend write a book that I wasn't in, and I was so mad about that. She's like, you just weren't relevant enough. And I was like, what? I would rather had her bash me.
Oh, that's hilarious.
It's terrible.
Yeah, I think that she feels a little bit vulnerable about that and that she doesn't have control of that narrative. But I hope that she trusts me to advocate for her and to not write anything designed to...
Do you want some forgiveness? Do you want some, you know what, I was not there like I should have been either. I'm sorry. It wasn't just you. Do you want that?
Yeah.
Or have you gotten that, or do you need it?
I don't know. I probably want it. She's probably given me a tiny bit of it by virtue of how she treats me.
Yeah.
Right? But we never did the like really like mature adult deep heart to heart about it where we reconcile all of these past things. The work that I should have done to repair my marriage is what we would essentially have to do now in order to like do that. And that's an intimate process that frankly almost feels inappropriate in the context of her relationship.
Right.
Seriously. Like, that's intimacy building.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's the one, I always say it starts with one step. What's the one step that most men can take that are in relationships? Because we spend 2 parts on this podcast a lot. There are a lot of people that are in relationships that they need to get out of them. And the thing that's preventing them from being the right relationship is that the fact they're stuck in the wrong one and they're not going to get out. We spend a lot of time in the last year or two on, there are a lot of relationships that would work out if they could either just have this conversation or just make that they break up for the wrong reasons and they could have made it. They should have made it. And you know what? Those are the relationships of regret because it dawns on you. What's the one step that men or either side could take, either side, like we're playing against each other, like tomorrow? It's like, just start here. Is there one of those things?
I think for men and women, this will sound redundant on the guy side. I believe the number one relationship killer in the world is our habit of invalidating people when they say something's wrong. We don't think, I'm going to try to invalidate her right now so I can win this argument or something.
Right.
It's this very honest disagreement, this very honest confusion about how she could feel this way about this dish by the sink, because that seems insane to me, without recognizing that the math result of the conversation for her is, if he doesn't agree with me, he implies I'm stupid, he implies I'm crazy, he implies I'm weak, or he defends himself. In any case, I can't trust him to not keep doing this thing that hurts me. Right. I certainly can't trust him to like hear me and understand me. Therefore, I can't calculate that a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now is going to be a healthy relationship. I have to try to get him to get this, right? So they like up the emotional ante
sometimes. She doesn't trust you.
sometimes.
She doesn't feel safe, and the whole thing unravels.
yeah, I don't know how familiar with like Maslow's hierarchy of needs you are, but I leverage it in coaching all the time. It's without safety, all you give a shit about safety if you don't have it.
Right.
You don't care about the weather or your 401k or anything if you're fundamentally unsafe because a bear's chasing you or some guy's got his hands around your neck.
Right. And a breach of trust unravels the safety.
Absolutely. And then level 3 of Maslow's pyramid is community and connection and togetherness and all these things we do when we date and we have relationships. Most men try to connect with their partners up on this like level 3 of the pyramid.
Right.
What they really need to concentrate on is the restoration of safety. Then their partner will want to sleep with them. Then their partner will want to go out to like movies and dinner and parties and
that trust and that safety comes from being heard, feeling recognized, being relevant, and those things you could be like, well, she just wants to be right. There's a little more nuance to that.
It does, and it feels counterintuitive because I was like, safety. I would never hurt you. Not only that, if like bad people were trying to do bad things to us, even though I'd be terrified, I'd still take the bullet for you.
Right.
Like I would, and I knew that I would do that. So I'm like, therefore, it's illogical for you to feel unsafe with me.
Right.
And it was just me like not getting it. It was me not getting this subtle notion of nuanced notion of safety where it's almost about like reliability more so than it is about like physical safety.
Right.
I can't count on you. I know that I can't because my data sample's large. You always do the same thing. 5 more years of this, I won't even be myself anymore.
Right.
And leave. So then you talked about the other side, which it's funny. I don't want to like pit like men and women against each other, and I don't really think like that.
Jerry Springer show here.
But what I do think women should do, and there's almost no way they can because they're usually young when this happens, is just more vigilantly enforce boundaries. So something feels bad. They communicate it to their partner. Their partner does the invalidation thing. I wish they'd say, this is intolerable. You will do this forever. They don't psychically know that 7 years from now it'll end their marriage.
Right.
They just don't know because they're young. And they're like, I love this person and, you know, maybe he'll change.
And they wake up tomorrow and hope that the dishes will be put away.
But maybe even more important, because that's evidence of he considers me when he makes decisions.
Right.
I want to make it clear that I don't think it's literally about the dish. It's evidence.
It's metaphorically about the
yes,
dish.
sir. It's evidence that he hears me, understands me, and cares enough to do a thing on my behalf.
So again, just to clarify. So the step is what? Step 1 is what?
For a man?
Him. Yeah.
I think of it like a habit. I don't know. Do we have time to get into it?
Sure.
All right. So I always talk about this monster under the bed thing. It's one of my favorite things in coaching. It's my favorite scenario. It's the idea that helped me overcome my tendency to try to convince somebody that they're wrong when they think or feel differently than me.
Right.
Very specifically, a romantic partner.
Guilty. I'm guilty of that.
For the purpose of trust. And so I have a 13-year-old son, but I like to think about him when he was like 4 or 5, and he might have woken up in the middle of the night crying hysterically because he's afraid of a monster hiding under his bed. I'm a dad, and I can open the door, and I can walk in the room, and I can evaluate the situation. He's crying because he's afraid of a monster under the bed, and my brain says there's no monster under the bed.
Right.
The reason he's crying is asinine.
Right.
This is an overreaction, and on my default setting, I'll say that to him.
Right.
I'll say, dude, there's no monster under the bed. I need you to calm down. Nothing's wrong. Everything's okay. And if I was maybe like watching Monday Night Football or something, I'd be like, dude, I don't have time to like deal with invisible monsters right now. You should know better. Toughen up. Go to sleep. Everything's fine. And I leave. And I think there's really important ideas in that scenario. I'm right. If there was a judge in the room, judge is like, Dad's right.
Right.
I love him intensely. He's my favorite person.
Right.
So the love's not in question. And I would never hurt him on purpose.
Right.
I would never like plot a strategy to like hurt my son. But I think the math result of that conversation is my son's still afraid. He's still crying, but now he's alone in the dark. And he just learned that when Dad doesn't think the thing I care about matters, he abandons me.
So rather than trying to convince him there's no monster, it's to figure out why he feels there's a monster?
I want to participate effectively in restoring safety. And that to me is the mission in our adult relationships too. So the other half of this like monster under the bed scenario is I walk in the room, the person I want to be today. I want to walk in the room. I want to hug my son. I want to be like, dude, I don't think there's a monster under there, but you're scared and I've been scared before. And that is a terrible like feeling to have. And I'm really sorry that you're afraid right now. So like, let's work on that. Turn the light on. We can look under the bed together, make sure there's no monster. And I'm not going anywhere, buddy. I'm going to stay here until you know your bedroom's safe, your house is safe, and that most importantly, whenever something's wrong, you can call mom, you can call dad.
Right.
We're going to show up for you. And even if we can't fix what's wrong, you never have to fight your battles alone.